All right, so Jim Poole, you have been with kind of on board with the Mission 22 team now for the better part of 5, 6 years, something like that. NuCalm is a device, a company that has had a lot of really great benefits that we've seen with participants in our program, especially with those who are dealing with like chronic stress or sleep issues or things like that. It's one of the more powerful things I would say that is a part of the recovery and resiliency program, but is by no means, relegate. You don't necessarily have to be in the program to take advantage of NuCalm. And we've had some chats on and off with Jim over the years, and we thought today we would have a little bit more of a longer form conversation to really get into what the heck this technology is doing. Why is it that a little patch and some sound can make it such a massive difference? I have many things I'd love to get into today, but I just want to start off. I went to the NuCalm website earlier today, and it says on there that basically it's something like within 20 minutes, you can get the benefits of 2 hours worth of sleep. Now, I understand that, the military, especially before we hit record, we were talking about the use of NuCalm with pilots. The Air Force has been very interested in figuring out how do we get our pilots to be able to fly longer, do all the things that they need to do with all the demands that come with that job. And for quite some time, they put all this money in and couldn't find a way to replace sleep. No amount of caffeine or methamphetamine or whatever the case is could replace it. But now NuCalm is saying that, well, with our technology, actually, there might be sort of a way. So can you kind of start with like giving us a little bit of background on yourself, and then maybe getting into what all of this restorative sleep in 20 minutes is about?
Let's get right to it. I'm the president and CEO of the enterprise, been running this company for 16 years, collaborated with a brilliant neuroscientist, quantum physicist, naturopath, who spent 19 years of his life trying to figure out and invent this technology. But it was in 2012, we were doing work with statistical biophysicist Dr. Chung Kang Pang and Norton Huang from NASA. And we were studying stage 4 cancer patients versus Chicago Blackhawks. So we were doing research for our patents. And he called me up and said, "Hey, Mr. Poole, are you aware that 20 minutes of your product is equivalent to 2 hours of restorative sleep?" And I said, "No." And I said, "I'm not really sure what you're even talking about." Well, Dr. Chung Kang Pang is one of the world's preeminent experts on sleep. And he said, well, in the sleep architecture and how we sleep and why we sleep, there's a zone, which is a certain frequency, 4 hertz, which is theta, which is just above deep sleep, which is the healing zone for the human being. Sounds like an important place to be. So in our sleep, we cycle through that aspect of our sleep. And after puberty, we cycle through it quicker. And then we grow up and we have more responsibility and we find, alcohol or other ways to self-medicate. And our sleep gets compromised as we age. So NuCalm, specifically Rescue, guides your brainwave and holds you at 4 hertz. So we take you to a spot just above deep sleep. Deep sleep is delta, zero point 0.5 to 4 hertz. We hold you there. So not only are you getting the equivalent of 2 hours of sleep, it's not the sleep cycle. The first sleep cycle when you fall asleep is 100 minutes and it's 90 minutes. It is literally going and taking you and holding you there. So that's where that came to light. That was 13 years ago. And yes, the military have been using NuCalm since 2012 for, I wouldn't say that express purpose, Marcus, but it's expedited recovery without drugs.
Mhm.
So their ability to get the cellular restoration that they need. Now, when high performers or type A, triple A personality types they realize this, they say, wait a second. So you're meaning I can sleep less? And we say, no. No one would ever tell you to sleep less. Your sleep is the best sleep. And your physiology cannot make up sleep debt. This is all true. However, physics can make up sleep debt. So one of our proven protocols, and we give this kind of guidance to people, and that is if you wake up tomorrow morning and you wake up feeling really lethargic, you didn't sleep well, you're not really that excited to take on the day, don't tolerate that. go to the bathroom, get back in bed, do a 20-minute rescue. That 20 minutes will give you and augment the sleep debt that you just created. So
Hmm.
it's a really big piece of the puzzle for us, and that's been an exciting element to it. So anybody who travels, pilots, professional athletes, celebrities, you name it, they've all kind of benefited from that ability to make up sleep debt, but not replace sleep itself.
Yeah. So what it kind of sounds like to me is that over the course of a normal night of sleep, there's a lot of sort of cognitive foreplay almost before you get into those various stages of sleep. We have a module on our curriculum online on Mission 22 Institute for the listeners that talks about sleep in these different stages. And it's sounding like it's almost as if you're it's kind of like we're cutting straight to the chase when it comes to getting into that brainwave frequency that is associated with the most restorative portions of sleep. Now,
Yeah.
you mentioned rescue. On the NuCalm app, there are several different, I believe they're still called journeys, is that right? So,
Product, needs, outcomes,
yeah.
whatever you think.
So if you open up the app, we'll stick with journeys because I tell you some of them do feel like journeys, like you're taking me somewhere. Um, you've got off the top of my head, you've got deep sleep, you have rescue, which you mentioned, which is almost like a nap function. At least that's how I've used it. You have flow state, and then there are focus and ignite, and we can talk about those a little later. And so it's the way that maybe we should back up a little bit and kind of explain for those who are very new to NuCalm. It sounds very strange that you can simply put on headphones with or without the disc, and we can talk about the disc a little later, and suddenly you're asleep. Because there's, well, why don't I just use a binaural beat? I've heard of these things online where you can just put this thing in. And the way I understand it is that the you talk about math and the things that you can't hear with NuCalm. There's a lot going on in the background that your auditory sensors in your head can't pick up, but your brain is picking those things up.
Right.
So to give an example of how I used NuCalm just yesterday, there's a 50-minute journey. There's also the 20-minute one, which is kind of what we've been discussing. But the 50-minute one is like if you have a little bit more time, it's great. We're recording this on a Monday. It's great to do on like a Sunday afternoon. It was just perfect. And my experience of it was like there's the first portion of it, you kind of feel like you would if you were just lying down and listening to any other sort of song, like cool, like relaxing song. But then eventually you sort of go under. And so that sort of go on the same sort of sensation of falling asleep. And so I think of it as sort of going under because it's almost like a different experience than just sleeping. Because like when I did it yesterday, when I woke up, it was like, how long have I been out? Like I felt like I had just. So talk a little bit about kind of the experience of what that is and what's kind of going on behind the scenes of all of the stuff that you can't hear.
All right. So there's a lot to unpack there. Your experience was exactly as it's designed to be. The first 8 minutes of rescue, we call the departure lounge. We're going to take your brainwave to 4 hertz, but your central nervous system has a locus of control that will not allow us to just take it. It's not like an elevator.
Yeah.
For the first 8 minutes, we're taking you down, we're taking you up. We're taking you down, we're taking you up. We're literally seeking permission from your central nervous system to give us the opportunity to take you on this journey. Minute 8, if you're still lucid, you'll notice your body begins to sink into your bed. Your breath begins to slow down. You may have tingling sensations in your feet and in your hands, and then you kind of depart linear thinking. Most people fall into sleep. The matrix, the physics and the math and the software, what's doing all the work, is designed to take you down to 4 hertz in 8 minutes and hold you in that healing zone for until the last 4 minutes. The last 4 minutes, we then take you back up to 15 hertz. But I think the best way to start this and to explain what we're doing, let's think about how humans regulate their state of mind. We, as a human species, are not that immensely capable of regulating our state of mind, and it's all directly correlated to the frequency of your brainwave.
Hmm.
Now, my brain, your brain, Brian's brain, Steve's brain, Ann's brain, everybody's brain operates in the same oscillation matrix. There's 41 hertz frequency range of every human brain on Earth. There are five categories of frequency. Delta, theta, and alpha are slow frequencies in sleep. Beta and gamma are faster frequencies. So today, a random Monday, you wake up, you're feeling mentally lethargic, you got a busy day, you have a cup of coffee. Wow, your brain's working faster. It's not magic. The caffeine increased the speed of your brainwave frequency. You have a really tough day. Some people might have a glass of wine. That's not magic either. It slowed down the frequency of your brainwave function. When people in America have anxiety issues, they take an anti-anxiety pill. When they're depressed, they take an antidepressant. When they have sleep issues, they take a sleeping pill. So all of these things we rely on to externally bring into our brain to modulate the frequency of our brain. We're not even aware of this. But there are two ways to do this naturally, mimicking the body's natural brainwave frequency. The first way is frequency following response visual stimulation, made famous by Sigmund Freud in a pocket watch. Great, you're following a frequency to elicit a stimulus. Okay, 35% of the human population can avoid that. The second way to do this is to present your brain with precise signals using your ears to carry the signal. That's what we do. Dr. Holloway spent 19 years of his life trying to figure out how can I slow down the chaos in the monkey mind of the traumatized brain. Okay? Think about someone who's stressed, anxious, agitated, overwhelmed, distracted. Their frequency is going too fast. When your frequency is going too fast, what's happening physiologically? Your breath is shallow. You're not getting a lot of oxygen, especially to your prefrontal cortex, your brain, your forehead. Everything's related to the frequency. You can't really talk yourself out of it. The amygdala and the fight or flight response has a stronger neuronal network than your forehead and your patience and your presence and your logic. So you're kind of trapped in this state where it's just constant frequency. So what we created and launched in 2009 is a method with software. When I say math and science and physics, it's all math. It's all a physics platform in a software bed. It's half a gigabyte to 2.5 gigabytes of information per track. So your Rescue 50 yesterday was like 800 megabytes of information. Then we compose music on top of it to create a nice experience for the end user. That's it. So you hear music, you can't hear what's inaudible to the human ear. But
Hmm.
what's inaudible to the human ear are the signals and the precision. And all we're doing is we're dialing down the speed of your frequency. That's it. So we started as a FDA Class 3 regulated medical device in 2009. We started in surgery. We started by replacing general anesthesia with people listening to our physics wearing an eye mask being operated on with no general anesthesia. So if you want to think about the power of physics, that's what we did. In fact, we've done over 2,600,000 surgical procedures replacing general anesthesia, and I've personally witnessed about 50 of them, or I mean like 500 of them. And it's amazing. That was the core. Now, we should all use rescue every single day for the rest of our life. Why? None of us are impregnable to stress.
Hmm.
Every day of our life, everybody experiences stress. Most of us don't have the capacity, the discipline, the wherewithal. We're not doing yoga, tai chi. We're not meditation masters. In fact, not to demoralize all of us, monks have been using NuCalm for 11 years. So if monks are using NuCalm, huh, what are they stressed out about?
Hmm.
That's what confused me. What are you guys stressed? It's not about stress. They just said, hey, it allows us to get into a creative state and be better meditators with limited effort. So rescue is the core therapy and foundation for NuCalm, and it's what we recommend for everybody. What is the experience? It's 2:22 in the afternoon. It's a Monday. I find 30 minutes. It's built to my schedule. I go upstairs, I get in my bed, I put a headphone on and an eye mask, I put a disc on my left wrist, I press start. I lie there for the first few minutes. My brain is listening, going through the rest of my day, what happened earlier in the day, and then all of a sudden I'm gone. My brain turns left. Most of the time, I fall asleep. You're not designed to fall asleep. We don't want you to fall asleep. Falling asleep is going into delta. Delta is not as restorative as
Mm,
theta,
hmm
but your brain is smarter than our technology. So if you're sleep deprived, and most of us are, when you're levitating, like David Copperfield, we're levitating you just above deep sleep, and you're in that state, your body's like, yo, this feels really good. I'm going to go to sleep.
hmm
What's fascinating, Marcus, is every weekend, if I'm home and I have the opportunity, I love to NuCalm next to my wife. She doesn't like it. Why? Because she says to me, you start snoring as soon as you press start. And I say to her, that's impossible. I wasn't even sleeping. So the whole thing is this strange, what's called hypnagogic dissociative state. You have to get into a state where you lose sense of time and space. Otherwise, we haven't released your locus of control. If you knew yesterday how long you were in NuCalm, we didn't separate your control matrix from your body's healing. It's
hmm
all about that
hmm
dissociative state to say, hey, I don't need to list. I don't need to worry about what I haven't accomplished yet today or worry about what I have to do or did earlier today. I just want my body to slow down because the healing zone is also related to oxygen. When you are in deep rescue, you are breathing one breath every 10 seconds, 6 breaths a minute. That's the ultimate diaphragmatic breathing for a human. And that oxygen rich red blood permeates all aspects of your brain. So when you get up from NuCalm, you feel relaxed, restored, calm, centered, and grounded. We didn't do anything. We didn't say, hey, let's take Marcus's socks and shoes off and go have him walk on the earth for 30 minutes. We simply put you in a state where your body got the opportunity to heal. So we're a facilitator to allow the human brain to take a break, put the body in a healing state during the day. It's a no-brainer, number one. Number two, there's very few people on this earth that would prefer to go learn how to meditate like a monk as opposed to spending 30 minutes a day plugging in to unplug.
Yeah. Lots of really cool information there. And let me see if I can summarize here. So as far as understanding brainwave frequencies, this might sound like for someone who's brand new to all of these ideas, the way I would kind of describe it is depending on the function of what you're using your skin suit to do at any given moment that your mind resides in, you need to be in kind of a different gear almost. And so right before a workout, you're going to be in a different gear than right before relaxing at night, than right before giving a presentation or something like that. And depending on like we have more neural connections in our brains than there are atoms in the universe. And so there's a certain like if you've ever done an EKG or any one of those like you've seen those little studies where they put the spider web looking thing on top of somebody's head, that's what they're measuring. And so the idea is like what is the overall in all of your neurons acting in concert produce a singular wave that we can study. And so, depending on which band that you fall into, we can say this band is associated with these activities, that band is associated with that activities. So far, like none of this is sort of like woo woo or it might be sounding kind of weird, but this is how your body operates. Your body also operates on electrical currents, and we've said the word frequency quite a few times, and I really want to get into that a little bit today. And so with what NuCalm's doing is it's basically taking advantage of how it is that your body receives input from the environment to cue it to be in those circumstances or to be in those frequencies. So it's kind of like imagine if you had a stick shift but there's like 1,000 different inputs on how that stick shift in your car changes gear. And so your body is scanning the environment. Should I be able to explore or do I need to avoid? Do I need to go out and find, things in the bushes or do I need to tend and mend at home? And whether or not your brain is geared to do either of those activities is based on external and internal factors. NuCalm is one of those external factors that when you put yourself away from light, this is why we want to use an eye mask, and you allow yourself the input of sound with a lot of background stuff going on so that your brain can sort of take it in, then that now we're sort of artificially putting you into, it's like, okay, now's the time for restoration. That restoration mostly is associated with theta. So far so good. How are we doing?
Yes.
Okay, great. So now I want to talk a little bit about neuroscience. So in individuals with post-traumatic stress, or indeed with those who have chronic stress of some sort as an issue, there are physical brain changes that we can see. And one little nugget here that I want to encourage folks with is that if it feels like there's just no time between flash and bang, between event on the outside and response on the inside, it may well be the case that your brain has changed to such a degree that that response is very closely wired together. And let's say you're trying to make a new habit where you tell yourself, oh, I know I should react this way, but I don't. It's just so quick between stimulus and response. Well, there's actually parts of your brain can be understood by how close they are to one another. So in cases of post-traumatic stress, there's like many of us would be familiar with the amygdala, right? That's kind of the whenever something in the environment is threatening, it's processed through the amygdala. Now, the amygdala is co-located with something called the septum. Now, the septum's job is it's like the main dopamine center. It's where sort of your appetites and your drive comes from, and it cross inhibits the amygdala. In other words, when one is up, the other is down. Now, in cases of post-traumatic stress, the amygdala itself is reinforced and grows much larger. And by doing that, it actually overcomes the cross inhibition from the septum. What does that all mean? It basically means that the watchtower inside of the brain that's doing its job has been given too much stimulus. And then what also happens is that the prefrontal cortex, the sort of executive, the wiring between the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala is also hampered. So you trying to just like white knuckle yourself and like logic yourself through, don't be afraid or don't, get activated in a circumstance, your literal brain architecture, the physical shape is acting against you. Now, Jim, in some of our previous conversations, you did talk about how, for example, doing NuCalm for 14 days in a row up front at least is kind of the protocol that we're after. And you mentioned that in this process, you can actually start to shift your brain structure, which you can also do in meditation. So can you talk a little bit more about how it is that the NuCalm technology can actually cause or allow for physical changes in your brain and what the consequences of that is?
Sure. So trauma, complex trauma, comorbid with addiction. The amygdala is one area of the autonomic nervous system. The prefrontal and frontal cortex is the second area. These are kind of the resource challenges. Now, the currency of the human brain is oxygen-rich red blood. It's not time, it's not money, it's not attention, it's oxygen-rich red blood. The challenge for us is that the neural circuitry and the evolution of the amygdala in that part of our brain has 40 million years of evolution. 40 million years. Okay? Your forehead, your prefrontal and frontal cortex, which is our patience, our presence, our executive functioning, our logic, our decision making, our personality, our character. This is what separates us from primates. Is 4 million years of neuronal circuitry and evolution. Huh. So this part, the primordial reptile brain, has a 36 million year head start on this part. That doesn't seem fair because it's not. So what Marcus is alluding to, when the amygdala is triggered, it has a much better circuitry than our forehead. So it takes the resources from our forehead. When we are activated, think about the last time you just had an agitated response. What happens? Well, things happen in a nanosecond, but it's literally taking the oxygen-rich red blood from your forehead. It's activating what's called the HPA axis. Your blood flow goes from your extremities to your visceral organs. Your heart rate increases, your breath decreases, and you lose rational thinking because there's no oxygen-rich blood in the circuits here. Okay? So meditation, the art of meditation, yoga and Tai Chi and breathing exercises. The physiological benefit is to redistribute oxygen-rich red blood from the reptile part of our brain to our forehead. That's what NuCalm does.
Hmm.
When we do this, invariably by so it's all kind of related. Your brain wave is at a certain state, 4 hertz. That state makes it impregnable to a physiological response. At 4 hertz, your body cannot activate. Your heart can't go fast, your breath can't go shallow. So we're cycling oxygen-rich red blood to all areas of the brain. It's not discriminating. So it does go to the amygdala, but it also goes to the prefrontal and frontal cortex. And we're opening up what's called neuronal coherence. We're opening up new cognitive pathways to areas that have had restricted blood flow. When you look at a PET scan of a complex trauma patient, you will see a restricted blood flow to the hippocampus, prefrontal, and frontal cortex. They cannot relax on their own. No shame, no harm, no foul. You can't really override, to Marcus's point, 40 million years of perfected architecture and neuronal circuitry. If your brain believes you're in danger, your logic is unavailable to you. So, NuCalm, every day, you lie down, you get on rescue, and every day we're pushing oxygen rich red blood to areas of your brain that have been diminished with blood flow, and we're opening up new pathways. Now, here's what's fascinating to me. Over time, your subconscious will think about what it wants to think about when it wants to think about it, right? We don't have any control over that. Some days you may have lucid dreams of things you don't want to remember, and other days it could be great things. We can't really deal with that. But what happens is when you're in that state of blood flow here and you're thinking about things you don't want to remember, it separates the physical response from the memory. That's the power of creating neuronal coherence and new cognitive pathways to things that you find disturbing.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
that is how and why this technology was designed by Dr. Holloway, who'd been treating complex trauma, whether people coming out of the theater of war, whether it was complex abuse victims, didn't matter. Trauma was his expertise. Thousands and thousands of patients over 40 years clinically. He developed NuCalm with the express intent. I don't want to have to impose my will on your central nervous system by giving you pharmaceuticals. I
Hmm.
don't want to engage in cognitive behavioral therapy because your mind isn't safe, doesn't feel safe enough to engage in any kind of vulnerable discussion. I want to find a natural way to slow down your brain into theta because I know when your brain is there, your body has the opportunity to heal. So
Hmm.
this is a very powerful healing element. And, people say, well, it sounds like woo-woo or voodoo. And I laugh because I was like, it can't be any farther from that. We're a 35-year-old neuroscience company that has the only patents in the world, research done at Harvard Medical School, NASA, FDA Class C medical device, Health Canada approved, military approved, and NSS certified for sport, clinical studies, and 2,600,000 surgical procedures. It doesn't get any more left brain functional science than that.
Hmm.
Just because we haven't heard about it or it sounds too good to be true, that part I get. But as you've learned, Marcus, it doesn't matter what we think. It's an experience to be had. And then once you have that experience, you're like, okay, I don't know how this did what it did, but I went into NuCalm feeling mentally lethargic or agitated or confused, and I got out and I feel really calm and my mind is clear. And it builds upon itself. There's a cumulative improvement to a daily habit of NuCalm, just as there would be to a daily habit of meditation, yoga, Tai Chi, or breathing exercises.
Yeah, super helpful. And the idea of blood flow is the currency of the brain. It's also basically the currency of any like straight physical healing. So there are certain parts of the body. For example, the Achilles tendon that is notorious for not receiving much blood flow, and most interventions are there to facilitate that. I think everything from acupuncture to PRP injections, things like that, prolotherapy, is all designed to stimulate blood flow to that area. And so what I'm hearing is that when someone is in a condition where post-traumatic stress disorder, as described by the DSM, I think we would both agree is kind of it describes symptoms, but like the thing in itself is not really well described in that area. One of the, we're not going to get too much into like what causes that, but let's just say you're having old memories that are still upsetting. I love the way that you described how when you don't have blood flow to the prefrontal cortex, you're not able to separate out your here and now thinking with the emotion that comes up. And so, when one of the things that we teach on our course is that when you're not sleeping, you're unable to discharge, you're unable to consolidate a past memory to the point where that emotional charge is separated from that thing. And you mentioned the hippocampus earlier. That's a part of the brain that is responsible for memory consolidation. And indeed, we see that in cases of post-traumatic stress, that part of the brain is atrophied. And so what I'm hearing here is that with, say, for example, a medical solution, like a conventional medical solution, one of the things that you've hit on today is that this is a drug-free protocol. Indeed, it is literally just sound waves. I don't want to say just sound waves because there's a lot going on as we've discussed, but in a pharmaceutical intervention, let's say, you could argue, well, if somebody is so clinically impaired that they can't really operate on their day to day, perhaps there's a medicine that would like help to at least get them started. I think the argument that we're going to make today, and this is for educational purposes, to go consult your physician before getting off anything, but with the pharmaceutical intervention pathway, they're trying to basically say, we're going to shift the way that your neurons are firing, even though they can never really explain how they work because they don't know. But with NuCalm, what I'm hearing is by putting your brain into theta, then your body is able to take over and do what it does best by getting blood flow and facilitating blood flow in the areas that have not received it in quite some time. Because if you have old memories that still upset you, getting into deep sleep and theta specifically is what we're talking about here. That is a hot commodity, let's say. And so maybe for the first time in a long time, someone who uses NuCalm is getting blood delivered to parts of their brain that otherwise just have not, like you can understand from the physiological perspective, well, of course you feel that way. Um, one of the analogies I like to use is like imagine I used to live in Colorado. We were on like we called it the back 40. There was like a prairie right behind the house, and so there are these prairie dogs that would always chirp and make these sounds. And one of the ways a prairie dog town defends itself, right? They have these holes, and whenever there's a predator, they'll chirp to one another and they'll sound the alarm, and then they go and hide. Even if it's like, we had sausage dogs, right? A sausage dog is not going to do anything really to harm a prairie dog, not really. But the prairie dogs are going to sound the alarm anyway. So the cost for going ahead and hiding in the short term is much lower than the cost of not hiding when you should have. So in other words, as you were talking about before with the brain structures, parts of it being much older than the others, if we're looking at sort of an evolutionary lens of this, the bias toward running and hiding from the predator more often than not would keep you alive. For the nerds, it's like a type 2 error, right? A type 2 error would be sound the alarm when there's nothing actually there. A type 1 error would be don't sound the alarm when there is something there. So the consequence for a type 1 error is far higher than the consequence for a type 2 error. But when we're constantly and perpetually responding to type 2 errors, constantly running away when there's no predator, that is what reroutes that blood flow into parts of the brain who's really just doing their job. And so now with NuCalm, there's kind of a way out. There's a way to sort of actually help strip some of or give your body the brain state that it needs in to do healing on its own.
That's the key right there. So when we think, I look at conventional therapy and it misses the mark and it defies logic. What do I mean? The autonomic nervous system governed by the amygdala, manages the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the stress response versus the rest response. It manages our bodily functions like our heart rate, our respiration, our digestion. And it also manages fight, flight, or freeze. It's an autonomic nervous system. Fear, stress, anxiety, depression, worry, autonomic nervous system. So why would giving me a central nervous system suppressant be helping me? It's not.
Mm, mm-hmm.
It is not
Mm-hmm.
helping me. It is dulling the symptom because you're dulling my brain. You're dulling my central nervous system, but you are not addressing anything to do with the root cause in the autonomic nervous system. So the design and the desire was to activate the body's healing mechanism by within 8 minutes, predictably and with great precision, bringing you to a state of autonomic nervous system balance. It took us 5.5 years with the best scientists and mathematicians in the world. We have the only patent in the world for balancing the health of your autonomic nervous system. We got that 11 years ago, and today in 2025, we're still the only company in the world that has the only patent for balancing the autonomic nervous system. The brilliance of Dr. Holloway had nothing to do with, hey, let me find this for commercial use and let me do this, let me do it. No, let me go to the root cause and solve this problem.
Mm-hmm.
NuCalm is not the miracle, your body is. But
Mm-hmm.
the fight or flight and the amygdala and the fear and the stress and the concern and the worry and the expectation and agitation and overwhelm is so profoundly stronger and better at its job than our executive functioning and our logic and our decision making. We don't really stand a chance. It's not a level playing field. I look at NuCalm as a great equalizer. It puts the amygdala at the kids' table where it's belonged for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, amygdala, go to the kids' table. The adults would like to speak for a while. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what we do. And I love the idea of simply saying, we're a facilitator. We liberate you from stress, and we do it with precision. We do it safely, and we do it with a reliability factor that's really mind blowing to me. I mean, we work with monks, we work with stage 4 cancer. We work with trauma, complex trauma, addiction, professional athletes, pilots, active military, the FBI, hostage rescue team, BORTAC, BORSTAR, you name it. We work across the board of humanity from in utero to 100 years old. And here's what I've learned. Our brains are the same. The human brain is made from the same parts. You have an amygdala. Hey, so do I. Your brain oscillates in a frequency range. So does mine. You have an HPA axis. So do I. You have a hippocampus. Hey, what a coincidence, Marcus. So do I. So the stressors that come to us are unique to us, but the experience inside our brain when the central nervous system says, hey, amygdala, activate, we're in danger, is identical to every human on this earth.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need feedback from you with NuCalm. We're not seeking any feedback from your brain. We're directing you to an outcome we know is commensurate with what you want. So when you choose rescue, it's 4 hertz. When you choose power nap, it's 4 hertz. When you choose flow state, it's the creative zone, 7.83 hertz. When you choose focus, it's 18.4 hertz. When you choose deep sleep, it's zero point 0.5 hertz. That's what we've done. Created a pathway for you to modulate like a thermostat your state of mind based on the speed of your frequency.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, I've heard this idea that the body's default state is health, but sometimes there are roadblocks that you need to remove. And yeah, the whole idea of like sending the amygdala to the kids' table, that reminds me of how somebody described emotions. Like emotions are like your kids. You probably don't want them driving the car, but you don't want to put them in the trunk either. You know?
Right.
Um,
Right.
Nice. So Brian, I think may have had to hop off. He asked for the 14-day protocol, is that something you want to use rescue journeys exclusively for?
You want to use rescue every day, and you want to use deep sleep or deepest sleep plus every night. So the combination, if you think healing, like on Wednesday, I'll be presenting NuCalm to more than 40 people with stage 4 cancer. What do we need? We need restoration. We need cellular health. We need we need sleep. What are we not getting when we're worried that we're dying of cancer? We're not getting sleep. Why? Because we're filled with cortisol. So it's a combination platter. NuCalm has been around since 2009. Deep sleep's only been around since 2021. But for 15 years, we've been solving sleep. It's not direct. We don't solve your sleep by putting you to sleep and rubbing your back and reading you a bedtime story. We solve your sleep by solving your stress. You see, unless you have obstructive sleep apnea, unless you literally have a physiological obstruction of your airway, the rest of sleep issues, and most humans have them today, are stress modulated. You are not managing your stress well. So by the time it's time for bed, you're still too filled with cortisol. When you get up to pee between 2 and 3 in the morning, you're filled with cortisol. You are not sleeping because you're not managing stress well. When we manage your stress well every day by using rescue, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 50 minutes, however long you need, every day, we're preparing you for a good night's sleep. And then in your bedroom at night with a speaker, not the speaker on a mobile device, it can't support 3 gigabytes of information coming out of that track. With a speaker in your bedroom, you press start on a deep sleep track and we put you to sleep. So the combination therapy is rescue every day, deep sleep at night. And that's a therapy you'll use for the rest of your life. It's not like, hey, for 14 days, I'm going to jumpstart because, like I said earlier, monks are using this product. So if monks are impregnable to stress or not impregnable to stress, we're all in this kind of human function together. So rescue every day, deep sleep at night. If you start there, if we balance your nervous system, everything else is easier. Your emotional stability, your physical health, your healing. Why do we work with professional athletes? Professional athletes aren't monks. They're not meditators. They don't care about meditation. What they care about is reducing inflammation, hematomas, muscle injuries, concussion. That's why we work with professional athletes. I don't go into a locker room and say, hey, guys, we're going to meditate like a monk. We're gonna solve this. No. Hey, would you like to heal faster? Yes. Hey, you just broke your shoulder. Would you like to heal faster? Yes. So it's all related. We balance your nervous system. Everything else is better for you, period. You don't balance your nervous system, nothing's better for you because stress will govern you and manage you. And you kind of have figured that out in your lifetime. If I don't get ahead of this, it's going to manage me.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a bit of a paradigm shift to think about subtraction as opposed to addition. It reminds me of reading Nassim Taleb's work. He talks about this in his book Anti-Fragile, and then again in Skin in the Game. The idea of his use his term interventionista, and he's using this as on like an economic political idea. The whole idea here is like, don't just sit there, do something. Where it's like maybe with the economy, just hands off for a little while is actually what you need. And I think we internalize like, I need to do something. I need to add something. I need to, pile something more on. I need to learn this thing. I need to do this in order to get better. But what we're offering here is like, no, we're actually removing something and allowing what's already there to do what it's supposed to do to begin with. Is kind of how I'm perceiving that.
It's a very good perception. A lot of that social conditioning, Marcus. I don't believe, a couple centuries ago, we had to-do lists and we were piling on our to-do list. We know this not to be the case. Um, what I've seen is if you're struggling and you have a need, you'll follow the protocol. It's not up for debate. Listen, I need help. I don't like how I'm living right now. Help me. You'll follow the protocol. For 15 and a half years, we can see a meta-analysis. We're doing 1,300,000 minutes a day, and we've just surpassed 1.7 billion minutes of NuCalm. That's almost 3,500 years. So we have a lot of data. And you can say, hey, Jim, who's your best user? People who are suffering. Suffering. You know why? Because this is an out. So for the people who are suffering, if you said, hey, find 30 minutes during the day, safe place, eye mask, headphone, press start, you're good to go. At night, press start on a speaker, they'll follow the protocol. And then once they kind of establish that balance, they know their body better than we do. They'll figure out what works for them or not. The performers, it's really difficult for performers to say, wait a second, I don't have 30 minutes. Do you know how much I can get done in 30 minutes? I don't have 30 minutes to give you. But when they learn that if they invest 30 minutes during the day, it pays them back with 8 to 10 hours of high functioning clarity and mental productivity, they use it as a tool. I have never used NuCalm as a tool for recovery. That's not my jam. My jam is go, 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 go. I use it to give me 2 days. I'm working with this group in India, and this guy named Doc Shah says, Jim, NuCalm has doubled my life. I
Mm,
said, what are you talking about? He said, I start my day. I'm the CEO of a big company. And I do all my things. And then midday, I go new calm. When I get up, I start my day again. I'm getting 2 days
yeah.
in one every day. You've doubled my life. So there's two places where people use this technology. You're either using it to perform, you're a professional athlete, a pilot, whatever, or you're suffering. And when you're suffering, you just want help. And you and I know this. You and I look at people and we say, hey, you've been through the VA, you've been through this, you've been through that. They've told you they can do this, they told you they can do that. Mediocre technologies can't do the trick. This is a very profound problem. And there is no silver bullet. NuCalm is a great foundational therapy. It's not the be all end all. It's not the only thing you'll do. There's nutrition, there's social, there's exercise, there's intimacy, there's relationship. There's a lot of different varieties to healing. This just happens to be the best in class on balancing your nervous system, giving you the foundation to begin your healing journey. Because if you don't, 2 days from now, like I said, I will look and 40 people with stage 4 cancer. Their medical oncologist has given these folks the directive to go home and get their affairs in order.
Mm,
They're not going anywhere. I already know this. For 11 years, working with Dr. Janet Ranicky, we founded the Comprehensive Cancer Wellness Program. Thousands of people with stage 4 cancer are still alive. In fact, in January, when we kicked off this presentation, Dr. Ranicky said, Jim, we have a special guest here. Do you remember so and so? I said, yeah. She was at our first program in October 2014. She was given 2 weeks to live 11 years ago. NuCalm isn't curing cancer. It's coming in saying there's two areas we can help you. You're not managing your stress well. You're overwhelmed, you're confused, you're scared, and you're not sleeping well. We take those two out of the equation. Your body knows how to heal.
hmm hmm Yeah, it's interesting how powerful even something like the placebo effect is, and the thing that you're told, and then the thing that you manifest in your body based on the thing that you are told and tell yourself. I've been curious if actually me and Magnus were talking about this the other day. I think he had this idea. Totally unethical study, but imagine you had cancer patients where you took a group, like one group just gets the standard of care or whatever that is currently. The other group, you do a double blind where you give the physician a clean bill of health for someone who's a cancer patient. And the physician comes in and says, you look great. You're doing great. You've got all the things that you need to live a great life. And then you tell the other patients that have the same thing, you've got 2 weeks to live. What kind of difference does that by itself, what would that make? Um,
Every difference.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Every difference. At the Comprehensive Cancer Wellness Program, it's near and dear to my heart, and we've served thousands of people. The people that live are the people that have hope.
Mm,
The people that don't live are the people that succumb to the white coat, to the medical oncologist who speaks to you like a robot and says, "Hey, there's nothing more we can do." So you don't need to do a double-blind study on that. All you have to do is look at Carl Simonson's work or Janet Ranicki's work and be, okay, I see what's happening here. And we've seen that, ad nauseum throughout time.
mhm,
What you think you are, you are. It's that simple. We all have cancer in our body right now. You have cancer in your body right now. So do I.
mhm,
We have something called a killer cell. And the killer cell has one job, find the cancer and kill it. Well, when we're stressed out, what feeds cancer? Stress and sugar. Stress and sugar. And then there's an emotional component to cancer as well. So um, I see a question here from Ann. How does it compare to PEMF device? It's not in the same ballpark. Um, So PEMF, say it's an amp coil or it's a beamer, you're doing localized frequency kind of resonance, like a tuning fork. NuCalm is modulating the frequency of your brain wave. So it's a kind of whole different ball game. I do a lot of work with amp coil. I never do it in conjunction, but we do have a lot of places that do beamer and PEMF with NuCalm, and it's more commercial than it is efficacy. The beamer, you don't feel anything. It takes 6, 7, 8 weeks, 9 weeks, 10 weeks, and hey, my circulation's better. So people would go into these facilities, they'd pay a lot of money, and they'd say, hey, I don't feel anything. Why are you charging me 75 bucks? So 10 years ago, they were said, hey, let's combine it with NuCalm because with NuCalm, something happens. I feel something. Now, they can't unpack it and see what does what, but you can work with Beamer and do NuCalm at the same time. I use amp coil every night and I use it for localized stuff like microbials, parasites. I just tore my left rotator cuff. I'll put the coil on my left rotator cuff. So it's a different solution and a different outcome. Think of NuCalm as modulating the frequency of your brain. And you literally, if you wanted to, and this might be bold, but you could take caffeine and Red Bull and Monster Energy and coffee and alcohol and recreational drugs, antidepressants, anti-anxiety, sleeping pills, exercise, intimacy, everything, put it on one side of the table and put the NuCalm app on the other side. Because what we do is we modulate the outcome of the frequency you're trying to get from all those external stimulations. So it's an internal regulation of your brainwave as opposed to a localized piece.
Awesome. Thank you for that. I also had a question in there about pets and how the frequencies affect pets that sleep with you at night.
Okay, so it's going to be better than just sleeping with you at night. Rescue, um, about in 2011, things happened in threes, and three doctors reached out to me over the weekend and said, hey, I've got a pet Rottweiler. I get up from rescue, and my dog is splayed out. He's like passed out. So I'm like, okay. So I called Dr. Holloway, say, hey, Doc, I got three calls this weekend from doctors who are saying that pets are having this experience. He said, Jim, a dog has 6 times the sensitive hearing and a cat has 8 times. Hello, use some logic here, brother. They can hear what we can't hear. So we have a headphone on and we're listening to rescue. We still can't hear what the signals, but we have three cats. And invariably, I'll get a new calm and all of a sudden I feel feet walking on my shins, and then they get nestled in. And literally, we've got videos. My wife takes all these videos of our cats, kind of they're like this, and all of a sudden they're just like, uh. So yes, cats, dogs, horses, we've been working with for more than a decade. They can all hear it. There's people who said, "Hey, when I take my dogs for a walk and we get in the Jeep, they're just yapping." So I play rescue in the car, and they haven't yapped in years. At night, they will sleep with you, and deep sleep will have that impact. But you'll notice a more profound impact with rescue as we're making our pets monks. It's brilliant.
Well, good. I'm glad it's not a negative effect because I wasn't sure. Do they have the same brainwave frequencies as we do? I didn't know how it would affect them.
They have similar brainwave frequencies, but they have a lot higher sensitive hearing.
Yeah. Okay.
What about like if you had deep sleep on with an external speaker and like an infant and you're trying to sleep through the night? Have you noticed
Yes,
anything with that?
absolutely. I wish that, my kids are 23, 20, and 18, so they didn't have that luxury. A little crib speaker with deep sleep, it's a no-brainer. I mean, just incredible. And even more profound and more obvious is nap time. Say they're colicky, they're not, whatever's going on in their digestion, and they're cranky. You don't have to get up and hold them, and you don't have to drive them around. We used to have to like turn on the hair dryer, the vacuum cleaner. My girl would be like, ah. You just put rescue on crib, and it's literally puts them in a trance. So we've had a few military folks. I love the military folks because they're interested in data and they're skeptical just naturally. So we have one gentleman who said, "Listen, my two kids are the first two kids in history that were conceived on NuCalm every day in utero. My wife did NuCalm, gave birth in water, no drugs on NuCalm, and then
Mhm.
have used NuCalm every day. And they're 5 and 7 years old. So, in fact, he wanted to share with me the birthing video. I said, I'm cool, bro. I don't need
Yeah,
that.
that would be something.
So, when you think of NuCalm and frequency, there's one thing I really admire most about this tech. We can do no harm, ever. There's no
Mhm.
harm we can do. We're just like a thermostat. We're just regulating the frequency of your brain. We're not doing anything harmful. You can't be in harm at 4 hertz. It's a physiological impossibility. Nothing can happen to you. So for babies, absolutely. All of our girls use Focus. Two of them are still in college, so they use Focus every day, especially as we're getting towards finals. They use Deep Sleep at night. Two of them are college athletes, so they'll use Ignite and they'll use some of the other techs to kind of amplify their energy. But yeah, it's an amazing gift for kids because after puberty, they're hormonally dysregulated for several years and their sleep gets compromised. Kids don't have a circadian rhythm. That's why my girls can get up at 5:30 all week during the week and then on Saturday sleep till noon. We can't sleep till noon ever, right? So it's really good for kids. It's just the challenge is how do I get my child who, I'm never a hero in my own home. How do I get her to try something? So we use different tricks of the trade for that, whether it's a social media influencer or hey, Steph Curry uses this. You want to be a basketball player, use this, or military. Hey, FBI pilots are using this. You should try to use this. So
Yeah, two other questions I had. One of them is from Anne. We sort of teased the discs. I haven't used the discs in like years, and I can use Rescue or Deep Sleep, and they pretty much have very similar effects. The purpose of the disc, we've talked a little bit about frequency, and we'll see if we have a bit more of a deep dive. This might be worth a whole other conversation, but um, the discs are essentially, Jim can speak a little bit more specifically to this, but you put it on a particular acupressure point and they emit a certain. Uh, I think one thing to preface here is that we underestimate just how important frequencies are in our bodies doing things. So, like when we say like, "Oh, this forest has a good vibe," you're literally true. Or this beachfront, like I love how the vibe here. Like literally, that's true. There is a vibration that is being emitted by the ocean that your body attunes to, and you like that feeling. So take that same concept and then apply that to a little sticker that has within it a certain excitatory frequency that your body then picks up on. And that particular frequency then cues the brain to start producing something called GABA, which is a neurotransmitter that's the inhibitory neurotransmitter. Basically, we talked about that seesaw balance with the parts of the brain. Neurotransmitters work in a similar way, where when one goes up, the other goes down. So when you get a bit more GABA going, it works in concert with the neuroacoustics that NuCalm also provides. And so, Jim, if there's anything you could add, did I get that about
I'm
right?
not sure why I'm even here, Marcus. You're speaking so eloquently. It's brilliant, and I like hearing it. The disc is a brilliant invention by a brilliant neuroscientist. It took him 5 years to figure this out. Essentially, we're able to, instead of bringing nutrients in through a supplement, we were able to locate the specific frequency of those amino acids. GABA is the primary one. We started in 2009 with 3 really large chewable tablets and we just don't absorb as much as we want. Then we went to a transdermal cream, and then we went to the disc. The disc is designed for trauma as you begin your healing journey because it will strengthen the rescue experience. It'll make the experience faster acting, deeper, and the experience longer lasting. These are used in surgical procedures. We have a finite amount of time to bring that person who's in a constant state of fear in pre-op to a place where we're going to operate them on. It's fast. We got to get you to that state quickly. So when you put the disc on, it's flooding your brain with GABA, and GABA interrupts the HPA axis. It interrupts your body's ability to create adrenaline. It's literally the brakes on the nervous system. So that's all the disc is. It's fascinating. The technology is we located the frequencies. It's a 6-layer multi-wave oscillator imprinted inside a Tesla coil, and it's holding an energy source that's basically gets into your Gauss field and activates. It sounds like Star Trek. When I first heard it, I was like, what are you talking about? None of this is real. It's insane. But we've been using it for 7 years, and it's very, very powerful for the expressed intent of making that recovery experience faster acting. To Marcus's point, your body wants to be in balance. Oh my goodness. It would love so much for this roller coaster of high stress and poor sleep to be over. And it's so quick to adjust to that balance. So we can take, for example, in 2014, we had a metastatic stage 4 brain cancer patient who did the longest NuCalm that wasn't associated with a surgery. The longest surgery we've done on NuCalm was 9 hours. This woman was in NuCalm for 4 hours and 4 minutes. I thought she had passed away. I literally was like, I don't think she's alive anymore. I've never seen someone be in this long. And I'd go up and I'd listen to her breath. She came in the next day and she didn't look like herself at all. She looked like a model. I was like, oh my God, what happened? She's like, I slept last night for the first time in 10 years. The next day, she did NuCalm for an hour and 56 minutes. We cut that in half. We didn't cut it. Her autonomic nervous system did. The next day, it was 56 minutes. By day 4, her body was so adapt at getting into that state of balance. She was in NuCalm for 40 something minutes. So she went from 4 hours to 4 minutes. So when we first start this healing journey and we want to pull the plug on all the chaos that our brain's been having to normalize, right? We normalize dysfunction. Hey, this is a normal day. No, it's not. None of this is normal. When we pull the plug on that, we use the disc for like the first year. You probably don't need the disc again unless you run into a, acute crisis. So we're using that as a tool to help with the experience of balancing your autonomic nervous system. The disc is used for the rescue experience. So you go upstairs, you put the disc on, the eye mask, the headphone, you do your rescue experience, and then you take the disc off.
Yeah, one thing I did want to ask about, every once in a while, we'll get clients within our program who either one of two things might happen. They'll use it once and sort of dismiss it and like, ah, it doesn't work, especially for like the swing shifter. And I'm sitting here like, how did you use it to where it didn't work? Because like I've experienced many sessions where it's very clear that something's happening well beyond just listening to nice music. And so I'm trying to think like, well, maybe we triage like how are you using it? So for somebody who remains skeptical and just like they used it once, I didn't do much. Um, and then the other one would be, this is an interesting one. If you're there's a little bit of chicken and egg issue sometimes where someone just to be asked, hey, I want you to put noise canceling headphones on, cover your eyes, and close the door and lay there for 20 minutes. If someone's nervous system is the way that you put it, Jim, a while ago, and this has stuck with me, by the way, this has been really helpful in helping me to explain it, is that your nervous system does not trust the environment. It's like a really good, succinct way. I think you said that before. And so for somebody who's like very hyperactive when it comes to their nervous system really doesn't trust the environment, asking them to take 20 minutes off to cover their eyes and basically cut out everything from the outside world, what would you say to those individuals?
Okay, so first things first. The person who tries it once and says it doesn't work, say, well, that's physiologically impossible. Okay. But if they don't have someone observing, because as you know, when you're in there, I don't know where I am. The fact that I snore every time I NuCalm and my wife tells me I snore, but I don't believe I'm sleeping, tells you that. We used to do a lot of demonstrations. So I've done about 500 lectures to the medical community. And in this lecture, we would either have chairs on the stage or we'd have a recovery lounge. And invariably, there are people that have such a strong locus of control and just an inherent skepticism. They're like, that didn't work. We did ask them a simple question. How long do you think you were in there? And they'd say 15 minutes max. And we'd say 52 minutes. And the audience would erupt. Ah, this is crazy. He doesn't know. So if there's an observer, that person can say, hey, wait a second. Marcus, you're telling me that didn't work, but you were snoring for the last 36 minutes and something's not equating. So there's that piece. The second thing would be, listen, Do you trust NASA? Sure. Do you trust Harvard Medical School? Sure. Do you trust the Department of Defense, right? Special Forces. Do you think they're going to work or use something if it doesn't work for 13 years on $6 million operators? Do you trust the Golden State Warriors? Do you think they're going to use a product that doesn't work? So you're not applying logic to the situation here. Great. Give it a week. Give yourself a week. Do this for 7 days. If you don't see or feel anything different, if the people around you don't start seeing a difference in your reaction, in your engagement, then hey, maybe this isn't for you. So that's that profile. Okay. I don't dismiss any of it because you can't dismiss skepticism. You just say, hey, just keep trying it. It's not a miracle. It's not a magic bullet. It's neuroscience and you're a complex organism. So just give it 7 days and then come back to me. On the person who has a strong locus of control, yeah, that's a problem. Hey, you've been traumatized. You don't trust yourself. You don't trust the universe. Let's take your eyes and ears away and try something that I can't even explain how it works. You're right. That's a recipe
Yeah.
for anticipatory anxiety. I'm getting anxious just thinking about it. So here's what's cool. Your reticular activating system, your brain's ability for pattern recognition and finding shortcuts. This is how fast it works. They do NuCalm the first time. They're in there for 20 minutes. First of all, you and I both know that's too short a time. Let them bake as long as possible, right? Once we unplug them, please just let them get that break. But they get out and they're like, ah, it was a little uncomfortable. But they didn't move. The cool thing about being in theta, you can still have thoughts that elicit, wow, I don't want to think about that. But your body cannot move. You can barely, there's times, Marcus, that you may have an itch. You can't even find your arms, right? You're in this crazy lucid state. You're just like, ah. So they didn't move. Here's what you tell them. You're in the perfect place. This was designed for you. This is one of the safest mechanisms and path to healing that's available. And the beauty of the reticular activating system is it's already figured out that it's safe. So the second time they use rescue, their brain has already said, ah, I remember this and I want to go there again. So you'll see them just glide right in. That second experience is so profoundly better than the first. And I get it. I've seen a couple instances where someone was in surgery taking the headphone off. I've seen it twice. And I was like, whoa, that person is really, really, really in trouble if they can do that because you typically can't even find the strength to move in NuCalm. And that person I'll just take aside and say, hey, I don't need to know the extent of your trauma. Clearly, there's a lot there. This is the best technology, safest technology you're ever going to find. And it's for you. And you just have to trust yourself to try it again because the next time you try it, you're going to like it. And the more you use this, the more we're going to help you. There are some people who normalize their dysfunction. There are some people who normalize and use their trauma as an anchor and they don't even want help. We have to figure out ways to get them to help themselves. So sometimes that path is, hey, you don't want to do rescue? Fine. Can you listen to this with a speaker in your bedroom at night? Give us a week or two of that. All we have to do is just put a stop to the chaos, put a stop to that grip. They're gripping. We just have to loosen that grip. Once we loosen that grip and they begin to trust in the process and trust in themselves, their healing journey accelerates.
Great. Yeah, I love that explanation. It's one of those things where if you're so habituated to, like, during my I went through a mental health counseling program at one point, and something I learned there is that people can literally get addicted to the feeling of trauma, which, like, at first it's like, oh my gosh, that doesn't sound like something someone, like that's totally irrational. Like, yeah, that's the point. And yes, absolutely, people can. Um, so tell me, what's next for NuCalm? You've talked a little bit about how the original version of it has been updated. You swapped out the sort of creams for the patches. Like, where do you see NuCalm going from here?
We have in July of 2022, when we launched Focus, we'd completed mapping the entirety of human brainwave function. So there's no new place for us to create. It doesn't exist. Our brain's not creating a new, category of brainwave function anytime soon. So we have 6 products on the mobile app that manage all 5 categories. Our goal is to continuously refine the product. You'll notice every track we release is stronger than anything we previously released. We're constantly learning, growing, evolving. We're also learning from the neuroscience literature what we're doing. I'm out there all over the world in the neuroscience space, and we're just taking all these learnings and growing, growing, growing. But our goal is to make this affordable, accessible, and easy to use. We're getting to a place with a mobile app and a headphone. I don't really have to explain how NuCalm works anymore. First of all, no one understands it. And if you don't understand it, your brain just gets paralyzed. But secondly, all you need is a headphone and a mobile app. You don't need to know how it works. Most people don't know how a microwave works. They just know it conveniently heats up their food. We don't need you to know how NuCalm works. It just helps me feel better when I'm having a stressful day. It helps me sleep. It helps me elevate when I want to go work out. So our goal is mass adoption, global adoption of the product, and get this into as many households as possible. So today, last week, last year, next year, it's all about marketing awareness and bringing people to try the product. And we have that 7-day free trial. So I no longer have to lecture around the world till I'm blue in the face talking to people. And they're like, what is this dude talking about? Who cares? Just put it on your head and press start.
I love that we finish our hour plus conversation on you really didn't need to know any of that. No, it's yeah.
You didn't.
Yeah.
You
Um,
didn't. It's fascinating and it's good stuff,
yeah,
but
totally.
the reality is you know your body better than anybody, and just give this a week in your life and it'll change your life. And you'll know it from the people around you.
Yeah.
The people around you be like, wait a second, something good is happening here.
And Ann wanted to know if there's any guidance on the types of external speakers you would use for deep sleep.
Sure. Any speaker that's decent. I use a Sonos. It might be overkill. I played in a rock band for 17 years. I'm probably hard of hearing. My wife would probably tell you that I'm definitely hard of hearing. It sits right next to our bed and it sounds like someone like I'm sleeping in the rain, and I love it. Any type of speaker, we usually have like a Sony, like a portable Sony. People have Bose. Any type of external speaker will do. I don't use a mobile app. I don't use my phone for NuCalm. I use an iPad, a dedicated iPad.
Hmm.
There's 2 reasons for it. My brain is smarter than I am, so it makes relationships. This phone is not for relaxation. This is work. So when I look at NuCalm, I don't look at my phone. Secondarily, when you do rescue, you have to hit do not disturb because you will be disturbed in this experience. What happened is, and this was years ago, I'd get up from NuCalm, it feels so good. No one could get a hold of me because I forgot to disarm the do not disturb. So I was like, okay, you can't get only for 5 hours and it's going right to voicemail. It sounds like I'm on an international flight, and I'm not. So I use an iPad, and everything for me is wired. So for over-ear headphone, here's a Bose headphone. It's comfortable. You will notice a difference in the experience with a nice headphone. Here's some Master and Dynamic headphones. Each track takes us anywhere from 18 months to about 26 months to create. That's a long time. We're a very patient animal. And people say, wow, you're either underachievers and lazy or something's more complicated here. They're not building music for entertainment. They have a matrix. They literally have a mathematical matrix. At minute 1 of Rescue 50, the first pitch is 162.3 and the frequency is 13.4 hertz. And then it goes and it changes. So they have to compose music with the physics. So it's like microsurgery.
Hmm.
So when you listen to these, though, some of the tracks, like Rescue 50 Volume 2, has 56 recordings overlaid into it. And then we have all the natural sounds. So the sound designer, Dan Celine, traveled the earth with a 3D holophonic microphone. I don't even know what that is. He said it's the highest level of recording in the world. And they recorded things like Big Sur at sunrise, or the surf in Kauai, or cicadas in Sedona, Arizona, or the ocean in Fiji. And they took all of these pieces and they put it in here environmentally with the frequency, with the sulfate. It's so fascinating. But when you put headphones on, you listen to it, you're like, wow, this is like, it's like a sound bath of all this cool stuff. And one thing you'll notice, Ann and Marcus, is that our goal is to trick your brain and to dissociate your brain. So as soon as you start kind of getting into a melody, you'll notice it shifts. Because if you connect with a melody, your locus of control begins to take over again. We need your brain to take a break. And your brain is really sophisticated and loves to be in control. So we're using all this trickery, all these crazy things. I mean, the meticulous design is incredible, and it's all designed for you to just take a mental break and allow the body to get into that balance.
I'll have to keep that in mind next time I want to justify a work trip to Fiji. I'll just say I have this holophonic microphone thing. I need to go do a work project real quick.
I'll sign off on it, man. Just send me the.
That's great. Well, Jim, thank you so much for your time here. For those listening, check out nucalm.com, NuCalm.com, and you can find a free trial there if you ever want to experience this for yourself. And we just want to thank you so much for your continued support to Mission 22. And yeah, where can people find you if they want to keep up with what you're doing?
NuCalm.com, baby.
That's
And
it.
you can find me at NuCalm.com. I don't have any social media. I know better. So I know how to take care of my mental health. So there you go.
Yeah, fair enough.
NuCalm.com.